Hey, Alex, welcome to the Marketing Innovators Podcast show here. And we're excited to have you to learn a little bit more about your background. So can you start by describing what your current role and where are you now?
Yeah, so my name is Alex Fishleder, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Impact Capital Funds. We are an interesting FinTech company that involves a hybrid model for investors that want to invest in prime student loans, as well as borrowers who are people that have loans here in the US, student loans, and we bring those loans to a lower rate. So we provide investors with what they're looking for, which is return, and borrowers, which is lower rates on their student loans. We're an interesting model because of the hybrid approach we have. And yeah, that's pretty much what we do. An investment management company as well as a refinance fintech all in one.
That's really interesting. So can you tell us a little more about background, your personal backstory? I mean, how did you actually ended up in?
Yeah, so I have a pretty interesting story. I mean, everyone probably says that, but my story is I went to school at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada. I always wanted to be a lawyer, got a degree in political science. And then my last year of school, I worked at a digital agency, and that's when I fell in love with marketing. And this was early this decade, 2011, 2010, when everything digital really started to pop up. So Facebook was growing, LinkedIn became popular, AdWords was becoming a giant. So that's how I started. I mean, I've been in the industry for a while, mostly as a B2B marketer. So I've worked in cybersecurity, CRM, as a demand generation marketer. Fast forward to 2018, I needed a new challenge in life. So I decided to come to the US to get an MBA from the University of Notre Dame. Graduated here last year and then co-founded Impact Capital Funds because as a student who needed to take out loans, we saw a need for lowering the rates of student borrowers because our profile, we get good jobs, we make good money and everything. We don't need to pay those high rates. So this idea basically came out as a need I had, as me and a classmate had as students in grad school.
Wow, that's great. I mean, great idea born through those times of need, and for sure, I think that this is a service that I believe can really impact the way that that student loans are managed and how how they can be refinanced. Because a lot of times, when you graduate, you're in so much debt, and sometimes you don't get the opportunity that you're looking for right away. So then you are running across some challenges where you have to find a job and start paying back the loan. So you help for need, right?
Exactly. And we realized school is very expensive here in the US. So what we're trying to do is, based on the loans we refi, instead of keeping the money as profits, it goes back to our investors, one portion, and the other portion is allocated as scholarships, because we see loans as necessary evil. But our big, hairy, audacious goal is to make sure school becomes more affordable for everyone who wants to attend school. So that's our long-term goal for Impact Capital.
Great. So vision for, impact capital funds, where do you see this over the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, so mostly we see ourselves working with students that graduate from medical school, law school, and business school, because historically those three groups are the ones that have the highest loans by virtue of those schools being very expensive. And we see ourselves as a major player in the student loan space. And even though there's quite a lot of competitors, every year there is, I believe, over $100 billion of new loans being created because people go to school and they need to take out loans. So we don't see ourselves as just a refinancing company. We see ourselves as an impact investing company that's creating what we call a triple bottom line. So our investors get the returns, that's their bottom line. Students get scholarships, and people that just graduated, borrowers, get lower rates. So we see ourselves as leaders in the impact investing business in the next 5 or 10 years.
Great. And while you're actually trying to achieve goals, what are maybe challenges that you foresee?
Yeah, one of the challenges there's various. One of them is the fact that we operate in quite a regulated industry. So what I mean by that is the financial industry in the US, everything is extremely regulated and we need lawyers and compliance officers to basically do anything. And as a startup that is backed by seed investors, we raised our seed series, but we haven't raised any Series A or anything like that. It's hard to go to market with a tight budget. I mean, this requires various millions of dollars. That's one of the challenges. Now, connected to that and more on the marketing side is customer acquisition. Based on the profitability of this industry, customer acquisition costs are extremely high. I mean, our competitors are paying up to $750 per borrower, something we just can't afford to do. So on the marketing side, one of the challenges is trying to acquire customers a different way, borrowing this phrase from other sources, growth hacker way to leads, as opposed to using traditional channels such as AdWords, Facebook, Instagram ads, and so on.
Customer acquisition costs can be really a killer. And, especially if you tie that in with the lifetime value of the customer, once you get a lead, you have to really convert that into obviously a customer, and that journey is really, really critical. There's a lot of touch points that have that journey. So let's talk a little bit more about that customer acquisition. I know a lot of companies, they struggle with bringing their acquisition costs down, and there's obviously acquisition costs on different industries. And have you used approaches or methodologies to help you bring that cost down?
Yeah, and that's a very good question, because we need to do that in order to survive. I mean, when you look at our LTV, and we run our unit economics every quarter to see how much we can spend to make sure we can double our what they call their CAC doubling time, and see if we're profitable. And our investors are usually asking for this every quarter just to make sure we're not wasting their money. At this point, we've experimented with the usual social media, AdWords, Facebook, and all that. And unfortunately, just the click is extremely high. We also have to we go against Facebook, because according to Facebook, we are selling a product. We're selling. They don't like financial companies. They don't like FinTechs. They say we go against their community rules. So it's hard to navigate that, and they don't really give you much warning. So the way we've structured our customer acquisition is not through those traditional channels. It's mostly through referral partners. So we have partners that offer other services that complement what we do, such as financial planning, such as software for paying back loans. And we just appear on those marketplaces and get referrals from there. Another way we do it is we have our investors, our institutions. So large institutions might have an endowment that they invest, and they want to invest a portion to us. So then they could offer our service to their members. And obviously we offer them a better rate, because we don't have to really go out there and get customers. So our acquisition costs are very low, so we can pass those savings to our clients. And that is our main differentiator, because we offer very low rates compared to other companies that have to go out there and hunt for customers.
So in addition to like the low rates and the value proposition that you're offering with those competitive rates, why would the customer be doing business with you? Are there other that differentiate your competitors?
Yeah. So the first one is, and it just has to do with rates, is we offer 0% for the first 3 months. I mean, that has to do with rates, and other competitors offer. It could be similar, but however, what we look at is the impact. People that refinance with us are basically funding a company that is generating scholarships for more people to go to school. So if you want to have more minority people attend your school, or more, first generation college people go to your school, we help you do that. And, table stakes obviously are the most important rates. But if you're looking at us versus another competitor, and we're offering you 2.9%, and the competitor is using that money to pay their shareholders, well, we use most of that money for scholarships. Our value proposition is you are being creating an impact for other people by refining with us. And best of all, it's not costing you anything. So that's pretty much our value proposition. We're an impact focused company.
Got it. So with regards to Facebook, I know that they can be very picky about these guidelines you mentioned earlier. How do you navigate through those challenges?
Yeah, and that's something I'm navigating as we speak. Facebook gives you very little context on why your ads were not approved. They like to use the blanket term violates community standards. Now, what are those community standards? It's up to you to figure out. Luckily, we work with an agency that sends several millions of dollars with their clients to Facebook every year, so they do have a human rep, but it still hasn't been helpful because Facebook has this law that says, you have to be an equal opportunity lender so that you don't discriminate who you're targeting. However, we're targeting only prime borrowers. So there's a small conflict there. What we try to do is be as transparent with our ads, having disclosures, with our landing pages, having disclosures. And then some ads get approved, some ads don't get approved. We don't understand the algorithm. I mean, it makes no sense, but we always have backup ads and messaging and copy in case the first one, second, and third one don't get approved.
I would imagine be doing a lot of A/B testing where you're turning ads and seeing working what does get approved and what doesn't.
Yeah, so ideally we did that, but then we figured even if you do that, one ad that looks the same as the other and there's just one variation in copy or in images won't get approved while the other one would. So we're still trying to figure that out. I mean, if anyone has any ideas, I'm open to listening.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the challenges with some of these platforms. I mean, they own rules, and sometimes, usually there's checkpoints that they actually have the ad run through, and sometimes they would flag the ad and block it from actually progressing further, and sometimes they would actually let it. So it's an interesting place of advertising. But have you thought of other means such as potentially search engine optimization or Google optimization?
Yeah, and that is a good question, but unfortunately we operate in quite a competed industry where our competitors have content and editorial teams that are ranking number one on Google, and we most likely won't get there in a while. So I see search, actually paid social and paid search as a way to jumpstart your marketing while your SEO takes effect. And SEO takes years to take effect, especially with keywords that are extremely high volume and high competition, like student loans. So we are building a content function. We have a blog. We publish articles every week, and we're trying to do some guest blogging to leverage link building. I understand link building is one of the most effective SEO methods there are, but it's going to be a while until we get there. On the same way, SEM, search engine marketing, with AdWords, since our category is so profitable, it's very expensive. We're looking at clicks of over around $100, and based on the way we've optimized our funnel to this point, we can't afford to do $100 just yet. We need to optimize our funnels a little better for us to justify those prices.
That is intense. I mean, $100 a click is quite a bit away. I mean, in terms of the competitive nature of your industry, I can imagine that it is a lucrative industry if the ad space is concerned, because the big players are paying that much, and they continue to do so for the past little while. Must be getting some return. But you're right, it's just the budget that they have and the deep pockets that they can actually spend in advertising to do those customer acquisitions that is helping them win the game. It's a tough market to tap into, and some really big challenges here, in front to actually overcome. So do you have a plan to tackle challenges, or what would be the approach that you're thinking of to take?
Yeah, so at this point, we're just launching our first fund. Our first fund is a $50 million fund. So if you look at the number of loans required for that, they're not that many. They're around 630, 650 loans that we need to refi. So there's other approaches, such as we're launching old school approaches, I like to call them, with campus ambassadors, with people, doing more offline methods as opposed to online, where we can really get close to our target consumer and explain to them our value proposition. And now with COVID restrictions, thankfully in the US being over to some degree, we can really tap into that. At this point, we've decided that online marketing, specifically search and social, may not make the most sense now. So yeah, that's what I like about marketing, right? It's an iterative process that's always changing, and based on our learnings, we are changing quite a lot of things. We would like to get more into the content space with our blogs, with our white papers, our ebooks, maybe even starting a blog series, a podcast series. But yeah, also referrals. There's a lot in the referral side. We're experimenting with paying current customers a referral fee, a referral, bonus if they bring in a customer. So there's a lot of interesting propositions that don't involve the big tech giants.
Yeah, no, it's you be smart about marketing. I think that, just going back to one of the rules and principles I am a big believer of, it's Drucker's principle, one of the best business minds of the century, that, all business is marketing and if you do that with competitors, then you can actually be successful. So, you have a very innovative product when it comes to, impact capital funds. And it's about getting it and getting it out there as soon as possible and aggressively as possible, better than your competitors, so you can actually take over that because it seems that you do have a great option to offer to your customers. But it's about being
And just so to let everyone know, if you see our website, that is a placeholder website. Since our product is a web-based product, we are building a new website that will include access to our platform and our TransUnion and all the financial elements we need to have. So that will be live at the end of April. So yeah, don't judge our current website. We are a startup, and that was just our first iteration of the website. As I said, with marketing, it's all iterating. So
excellent. We'll definitely be including the link to the website and your profile as well in this in the blog post podcast. So which to some of the biggest opportunities that are out there for impact capital fund in your future, where do you see that? Do you still plan to tackle the space where you have student loans and you're trying to refinance them, or do you see it going much further than that, and where would that be?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We see the problem in student loans. Just for context, in the US, there's 1.7 trillion with a T dollars of loans outstanding. That is more than credit card debt. That is more than auto financing, than any other type of debt, with the exception of mortgages, I believe. So it's a problem that's not going away. Schools are still being super expensive, so people need to pay for them, and they're still taking out loans. The system really needs to change. So we see ourselves thriving in that environment. And the more loans we refi, the more money we create for scholarships on the back end for people to go to school without loans. So as much as we could refi, the best for us and for the impact we're creating. So yeah, we want to stay in the student loan space. I mean, there's various iterations of how to do student loans and refinancing. But yeah, we're not going into auto or mortgages or anything like that, because it's a whole different animal.
Got it. That's really good. I mean, I think, targeting your specific audience, those students that are in debt, and helping them out is the way to go. So, so that really, I guess summarizes what the overall vision for impact capital funds is and moving forward. So if you were to go back yourself, you mentioned that you had this experience, to work in a digital agency and stuff. If you had to go back 5 or 10 years in your life and give some advice to your younger, what would that be?
Yeah, that's a good idea. And I think that would be never stop learning. I mean, when you're in an industry like marketing and digital that changes every day, you will become irrelevant if you stop learning. If you're still preaching things that are no longer relevant, like the best thing we have right now is our brains and how to use it. So just fill it up with information and never stop learning. I mean, I took 2 years off to go to school, but at the same time, I launched a company called LeadWorks in the marketing space just to make sure that I was one of the reasons to make sure that I was that I had this fear of missing out. Oh, I'm going to forget how to use this, how to do all this marketing. So never start learning and just follow your passion. I mean, everyone says that, but it's, there's no time to be in a job you don't like. I love what I do. I would never do anything that's, not marketing. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I should write an article about that. Actually, LinkedIn had this series called Advice to My 22-Year-Old Self. And I found a lot of
Nice.
interesting knowledge there from very, very famous people now, like Bill Gates and Elon Musk and so on, that wrote those articles. So yeah, that's a good question.
Well, that article is definitely going to be a winner. I think never stopping is something that I believe in myself as well, and a lot of the listeners also in that too. I think the day you stop learning, you stop progressing. So
That's true. It's true.
so and life is about progress, and you have to achieve, and you have to progress is part of being successful. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really important to everyone. You mentioned that on LinkedIn, I did notice that you have a premium account there. So have you used personally out to potential prospects, customers, or business associates?
Wait, ask that again. Sorry, I lost you for a second.
Have you used LinkedIn personally to for helping you reach out to connections for impact funds?
Yeah, so it's funny you bring that up because one of the reasons why I have a LinkedIn premium is that I get all the courses from lynda.com basically free. So I really like to learn from those. And they got some pretty good content there. Um, I use it to reach out to people, but honestly, I think it's just a tool as opposed to just, it's just a tool. I rather do email and find their emails and reach out personally. I don't like getting, called from LinkedIn because most people don't do their research and they end up looking like clowns saying, hey, do you need this? Well, if you read a little bit about my profile, you would see that we're not a match and so on. So it's a tool, but it's just another tool in our toolbox.
Got it. So before we wrap up, I mean, going back to the customer acquisition cost, the $750, and paying upwards of up to $100 per click. Um, it's a challenge that I think is only becoming more and more saturated as the internet becomes competitive. So you have these big players with deep pockets, and they're spending more and more money. It makes it difficult for you to tap into that market, and obviously makes it difficult for other new business that are in a similar industry to tap into that market as well. Poses a big challenge, and it leads me to believe that if are paying per click, there is that return on investment that they are still getting as a
Mhm.
result if they continue to pay that. So have you thought of how to overcome that challenge? I mean, have you, like, I know we talked about potentially SEO, and you're building a content strategy and a new website, but have you thought of any other marketing means, such as like YouTube or LinkedIn or some of these other platforms, to make use of them to drive your audience?
Yeah, and I think all these big tech companies growing and getting so rich from paid search, they've also created user generated content and things like Instagram stories, TikTok, and so on. So I think we're trying to find a way to activate our current user base through those platforms, and they become our advocates, having to bypass all these places like the Googles of the world, the Facebooks of the world. And that's the kind of marketing that really works, referral based marketing, and having these great tools to amplify that message. Hey, it even works better. It's organic. You don't have to pay much for it. And it's people talking to people as opposed to a company talking to people. And I don't know about most people out there, but lost faith in what companies have to say. I much rather hear it from a user. And you see that when you go out and read Yelp reviews or G2 crowd reviews or anything like that. So it's just activating the power of the crowd. And I think technology has enabled us to do that, especially something like student loans, where there's in the US such passion for this. People have a lot of things to say about this because it affects them so much. So it's activating your own small army of marketers.
Absolutely, activating the power of the crowd. I'm gonna steal that that tagline.
By all means,
that's gonna be your tagline for the title of this podcast, I think.
Sounds good.
So with regards to, and you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, like, it's about building that every business needs to build that community of people that really vouch out for you, that really speak positively about you. And it's hard. You can't, and there's no shortcut to it, right? There's no quick method. You have to really make a lot of effort. You have to establish relationships, and you have to have customers go through your product in order for them to be able to leave that positive review and basically become evangelists of your business. So
correct. And
that takes time.
We monitor our NPS, we call our net promoter score. We want to make sure that most of our people are promoters as opposed to detractors. So we do the big, put a lot of effort into that, into building that community organically that you just said.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. And, time, it takes time because only over time, once people start seeing positive, then you have the network effect, right? You have people telling others, then they join your community, they learn about your product, and I think once they actually experience the benefits of what you have to offer, then it's a no-brainer in terms of making that choice. But it's about getting them to that stage in the journey where they can actually make that decision and move forward. So
yeah, and you start there by building what I like to call a lovable product. They call it the minimum viable product. I call it the minimum lovable product, so that people start giving you the love to build that community and activate them as the power of the crowd.
That's true. Excellent. Well, that's great, Alex. So just to wrap up, where can people find you online, and what is the best channel to connect with you?
Yeah, so I've got my LinkedIn channel, Alejandro Fishleder. That's my full name. And by email, it's easier. It's just my last name, Fishleder, Fishleder@gmail.com. I'm always open to connecting, having great conversations, adding value wherever I can. Yeah, just mentoring people and having all these sorts of conversations with other marketers and business people as well.
Alex, thank you so much for taking the time today to come to the Marketing Innovators Podcast. And I'm sure I'll have learned a lot of your experience, and you'll have a lot of follow-up from this crowd here that has listened. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, Munib.